Confucian Ethics, adapted by Eileen Lai. Introduction. Confucius was born in 551 BCE during a time of instability in Chinese history. As a result, he was especially interested in how to create a peaceful and stable society. He looked into China's past and identified the Zhou period as one of harmony and peace, and believed that Chinese society could be restored if only people returned to the old ways. More specifically, he believed a stable society could be achieved through a relationship-based philosophy of strong family ties, good governance, and ethical individuals. He tried to convince Chinese rulers to adopt his theories on governance to no avail, and ultimately focused his energies on teaching instead. One of the key texts scholars use to examine Confucian ethics is titled The Analects. It is a collection of his teachings and sayings that were compiled by his students. The 500 or so passages in the collection all either directly or indirectly address what makes for good government and what makes for moral man. Confucius believed good government and good people to be intertwined. According to his thinking, government can only be good if it is made up of good people, and a good government will lead people in a way that will make them good. Thus, his philosophy stresses the prioritization of maintaining dependable, stable relations that will support an orderly government and society. Confucian ethics is different from other schools of thought in its focus on practice or praxis. He teaches his disciples to be skeptical of theories, like that of Kant's universal maxim, that claimed to always be able to provide the correct response to highly complex problems. He instead encourages them to show humility in the face of difficult problems and admit that what is right in one situation may not be right in another. Main idea. According to Confucius, in order to be a superiorly virtuous person, or a junzi, one should act with Ren. Ren has been translated by scholars many different ways, including benevolence, empathy, true goodness, and altruism. In addition, a junzi is one who upholds the Chinese traditional values of zhong, or loyalty, xiao, or filial piety, li, or ritual propriety, or shu, or reciprocity. Contrary to the common belief of the time that only those of high social class could become a junzi, or a virtuous person, Confucius believed anyone could become one through self-cultivation and education. Ren, empathy. Ren is the highest virtue according to Confucius, and it is also one of the most difficult to translate. The components of the Chinese character can help reveal some of its meaning. On the left side of the Chinese character is the symbol for a person or human being, and on the right side is a symbol for the number 2. So, express a fundamental Confucian belief that humans are interdependent, and that in order to be a truly good or virtuous human being, you must do so with other human beings. Ren can only be cultivated through relationships with other human beings and cannot be reached in seclusion. It is manifest through people's concrete behaviors toward other people. In other words, it is not enough to feel empathy or compassion toward others. Action is required. Mencius, a follower of Confucius, wrote that the concern one would feel for a child about to fall into a well is only part of Ren. For Ren to be truly realized in this situation, one would have to act to save the child. Ren requires a constant commitment to treating others with empathy, compassion, kindness, and respect. Quote, "Now the man of perfect virtue, wishing to be established himself, seeks also to establish others. Wishing to be enlarged himself, he seeks also to enlarge others." Analects 628. Zhong, loyalty. Loyalty to others, according to a series of hierarchical relationships, is another critical guiding principle of Confucian ethics. Confucius believes that all people had proper roles and responsibilities based on their relationship to others that should dictate their behavior. By following their proper roles, relationships would be maintained, which is the highest priority for a stable society. For example, a ruler should be kind and giving to their people, and their subjects should be loyal in return. Overall, people should act according to their political loyalty first, then to their family and clan loyalties, and finally to friends and strangers. Note that those in senior positions in the relationships are given responsibility to take care of those below them and to make decisions on their behalf with their best interests in mind. In return, those in junior positions of relationships treat them with respect, obedience, and loyalty. See image the 5 constant relationships for more. Shao, filial piety. This kind of hierarchical relational way of being is exemplified by Shao, or filial piety. Filial piety is sometimes translated as respect for one's parents or obedience to one's parents, but it is much more than that. Again, looking at Chinese character itself can help reveal some more of its meaning. The top portion of the character, Shao, is a symbol for old person, and underneath is a symbol representing a child. This embodies the idea that the younger person supports the older generation, but it is also reciprocal. The older generation protects, nurtures, and cares for the child from infancy, and therefore, the young person should respect, revere, and even perform ritual ceremonies of ancestor worship for them after their death. Filial piety is so important to Confucius because he believes the family to be a microcosm of a larger society. It is the family that teaches children about society, and he wanted them to internalize the belief that the world is inherently made up of hierarchical relationships. With each relationship, there is a clear set of roles and norms that exist, and that an ethical person is one who meets all the responsibilities as dictated by their role. And if parents succeeded in teaching children to be filial, the children would be able to apply that to the other relationships they had to friends, strangers, and most importantly, their government. If children were obedient to their parents, it meant they had learned to not defy their superiors, and they would be obedient to their rulers. Therefore, if everyone acted according to their prescribed role, society would be harmonious. Once again, the ritual propriety. Confucius insisted on the need to return to traditional practices of rituals of all kinds, including those for marriage, funerals, ancestor worship, bowing, and using the appropriate form of addressing people. He believed that when people's outward actions reflected respect, their internal thoughts and feelings would be reshaped to reflect respect as well. Their ritual propriety would then set an example for others to follow, and the whole society could be transformed. He did say, however, that the ritual behavior must be engaged in sincerely and with genuine feeling for it to have any impact. Shu, reciprocity. Below is an excerpt on reciprocity from page 30 of the Philosophy Handbook by Gregory Beauchamp. Confucius was a humanist in the sense that he focused mainly on practical human concerns and very little about spiritual matters or the ultimate nature of reality. The core of his teaching deals with the questions of ethics and politics. With respect to ethics, Confucius was a thinker far ahead of his time. One example of this was his doctrine of reciprocity, or Shu. It is said that one day Confucius' disciple Tse Kung asked, "Is there one single word that can serve as a principle of conduct for life?" Confucius replied, "Perhaps the word reciprocity will do. Do not do unto others what you do not want others to do unto you." This is one of the earliest forms of what is now called the Golden Rule. Most religions have some form or another of the rule. Jesus offers perhaps the most familiar version. Always treat others as you want to be treated, Matthew 7:12. Confucius expressed essentially the same insight 5 centuries earlier, though he phrased the rule negatively, do not do unto others, whereas Jesus stated it positively. The Golden Rule may or may not be the most fundamental rule of morality, but it certainly captures something very basic to the moral life. It rules out any kind of irrational, special pleading of the form, quote, it's okay for me to do X, but it is not for anyone else to do it, unquote. It also impels us to empathize with others, to see and feel things from their point of view. This capacity for empathy is critical to human moral response. Some critics reject the Golden Rule because they think it invites people to impose their own tastes and desires on other people. That, however, is a misunderstanding. What the rule really requires is that we try to manage what it would be like to be in the other person's shoes and then to act in accordance with that person's legitimate desires and needs. Thus understood, the Golden Rule does not compel us to satisfy desires that are, say, harmful or immoral, but only those that are reasonable and legitimate. This, of course, requires judgment, which we might get wrong, but that is true of many basic moral norms.